You're the vice chairman of the Intelligence Committee. We've learned a lot about China's military capabilities with the recent leaks of classified documents, coupled with the news of the spy balloon we've been following. Tell our viewers, what concerns you most right now about China?
I think China is positioning itself militarily to be not just to be the most powerful nation in the Indo-Pacific, but to dominate it and to force us out of it. And people have to understand, if that were to happen, you're talking about 60 or 70% of the global economy. Over half the world's population lives in two countries in that region. When you add the other ones in, it gets closer to 70%. So you're talking about a big deal. It would turn America into a continental power. We would not be a Pacific power for the first time since before the Second World War. And they're building a military. They're not going to invade the coast of California. But if they can hold at risk our aircraft carriers, our ability to project power in that region, the other countries are going to become vassal states. They're going to have to surrender to Chinese power. And we're going to have to pay a toll for any products that we try to ship to Asia or get from Asia here. It concerns me deeply because that military capability, they are focused on it like a laser. There's a lot of inefficiency in dictatorships, but the one thing they can do is they can make decisions without having town hall meetings, and they're moving very quickly, much faster than we are, in building up those capabilities and in our ability to respond.
We've committed to covering Latin America here on Top Story every night, and we've done a few investigations into the cozy relationship the Chinese are building with countries in our own backyard, from Caribbean nations to countries like El Salvador, Honduras, and Nicaragua. What concerns you the most, and have you brought this up to your colleagues and even to the White House?
No, I think there's a growing awareness of it. Obviously, unfortunately, the Western Hemisphere doesn't receive a lot of attention here or in other places unless there's a migratory crisis or something like that happening. But the Chinese are there for two reasons. The first is that they want access to mineral rights. They want access to rare earth minerals. They want access to those kinds of things. And the second is they want to have a geopolitical presence as a global power. And I think they want to turn the Western Hemisphere into what they believe we've done in Asia with Japan and South Korea and Australia and New Zealand and all these other allies. They want to do that to us in our own hemisphere. And unfortunately, they show up with a lot of money that they can use to either bribe officials and or, lease out contracts and get contracts that may not have any global competitors for it. And they'll build a port. They'll build bridges. They'll build a soccer stadium. Free money they throw around, a little bribe on the side for the leaders of these countries. It's a strategy they're pursuing, and they are doing it with some success.
Speaking of that, there is talk of a new port in La Union, I think, El Salvador. You recently met with the president of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele. Talk to us about that meeting, as some have questioned if he's violating human rights with his mass arrest and building of a mega prison. The effort is to be tough on crime, right? But some are wondering if he's trampling on human rights. Why did you want to meet with him?
Well, I think it's a critical and important country. First off, El Salvador was an unlivable place. I mean, for 30 years, you couldn't go out the street at night. MS-13 and MS-18 gangs actually ran the country for the most part. And every small business in the country either had to pay protection money, had to pay these gangs, or they would kill you or a family member, also leading to mass migration. For the first time in 30 years, people are telling me that's why his approval ratings are so high. I mean, in the 90s. And these are legitimate polling. Not even our embassy disputes these things. The reason why he's so popular is he rounded up a bunch of gang members, and they've dispersed, and he's really put a brutal blow on them. I don't think they set out to violate human rights. They had 80-something people killed in one night, and police officers targeted, and he went hard at him. It's a promise he made. And by the way, voters have rewarded him with a supermajority in their Congress. As far as the port is concerned, we discussed that and other things. And look,
I'm curious. What did you, not to cut you off, Senator, but what did you tell him about that and the relationship he's building with the Chinese?
Well, I just want them to be clear-eyed. Look, if the Chinese show up and say, here's $100 million of free money, no strings attached, you better look very carefully to make sure there are no strings attached. And I think it's important for them to be clear-eyed about it. They don't build ports for the fun of it. They build it because they want to dominate that area, because they want to dominate, they won't just build the port, they will then ensure that their companies control all the logistical sites around it. And oftentimes they'll make these deals that make no financial sense. In essence, they'll never make the money back that they're investing, but they're doing it for geopolitical purposes. So, my sense is that he, like other leaders around the world in developing countries, are trying to figure out how can I leverage this U.S.-China competition to get the best deal I can from both sides. That's what he's trying to do. That's what others are trying to do. We need to be cognizant. That's one of the things that's changing in the world right now. And that we have to have leaders that understand that. The world is very different than it was 10 years ago. We have a competitor. We need to act like it.
Senator Rubio, we thank you for your time, and we thank you for joining Top Story tonight.